in.
Right.
And welcome everybody to our monthly webinar as part of the Columbia University Northern Plains Superfund Research Program. We are very excited with our program today. We are going to be focusing on the talking about the gold mining and the
once
impact.
you clock out, just
we are going to be talking about the gold mining in the Northern Plains and the impact on local communities. Dr. Kathrin Schilling is going to give that presentation. But today we really wanted to also acknowledge and commemorate Liberation Day and the events at Wounded Knee. It's an important day in the Northern Plains today, and we wanted to make sure we had that important recognition. So Tracy Zucker is going to introduce our speaker, who is going to make that special commemoration. So Tracy, please, if you would like to introduce yourself and present our speaker. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Yes, my name is Tracy Zucker. I am the Field Office Director for Missouri Breaks. We are a small American Indian owned research company that does public health research on the Pine Ridge Reservation, also on the Cheyenne River Reservation and Spirit Lake. My maiden name for anyone who's local is Aroba. My parents are Jamie and Sarah Aroba. So some of those of you that are local may be familiar with my family. I am a member of the Rosebud Sioux tribe. My grandfather was a Clifford, and he was born and raised in Rocky Ford, South Dakota, which is on the Oglala Sioux tribe. So I have a lot of family connections on what we call OST, abbreviation for the tribe. And I'm here today with Mr. Ed Ironcloud. He is the Sergeant of Arms of the Oglala Sioux tribe. I have known Ed for many years. We met probably about 5 or 6 years ago. I think it was at a tribal council meeting, actually. And Ed is always very interested in not only our culture, but also understanding research and making sure, you know, that we have our data and our data is protected, and we can use our data to make data-driven decisions, you know, for our people. And I've had many conversations with Ed over the years about this. And with today being Liberation Day, I invited Ed to say a prayer and to also say a few words about today before Kathrin does her presentation. So Ed, I'd like to hand it over to you to take the floor. Go ahead, Ed. You might be on mute, maybe.
Oh, I don't see him anymore. We were just talking to him.
Oh, he's there. He's on mute. I see him.
Ah,
Ed, you're on mute, or maybe someone needs to unmute him. I don't know.
Whitney, can you unmute him?
I'm trying to see if I can find him.
He's
It's a telephone.
Oh, here he is. Okay, there you go. I just asked him to unmute himself.
The problem is that he's on a phone.
I'm not sure how
Oh,
to.
There we go. There he is.
I'm on now.
Okay, thank you, Ed.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Ed Ironcloud, and I'm a member of the Oglala Sioux tribe here on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And as Tracy stated earlier, I work for the Oglala Sioux tribe as a sergeant at arms. And Tracy had asked me to say a prayer today to open up the webinar, and also to share a little bit about the Liberation Day that's happening here now. And I'm actually here at Wounded Knee now, waiting for the walkers to come in here. So, but thank you, Tracy, for inviting me. And I want to ask, I don't know who's all on here, but I asked my Tunshi, which is Lakota's cousin, Richard, if it was the permission to say the prayer. He's in our church tribe, he's one of the elders. So, Tunshi, Ogna Awaki Hunta, Washtekta.
Oh, what's it?
Oh, Oh, all right. I'll say a prayer here for the meeting. So, Opila, Tracy, for asking me to do this honor here. So, well, tukashale, opet luta oyakup ki Opila hacha tukashale, omnisha umhafte le daki woglocking te beni woglocking te chat. Okay, apo tukashla, aka wash a tune head tukashla. Okay, apo because many lila on kan cha tukashla cha okay apo tukashla dona. Nagapto Yankaki and Kashla, Tiwahetra, a Wangla kana Okiapo to Kashla, Niesloa Taku, Chim to Kashla, Wayateki, Wopila, which chose an Wongla, Okia, Uyakup to Kashla, Wopila Hetcha to Kashla, Dakwayasing. Okay, I just said a prayer there and my Lakota language there, just, prayed that. Pray that all of us that are working on the water issues would receive help, and then for our families and friends, and our travels, that we'd have protection, and that we're grateful for the good day and the blessings that we've received today. So I want to say Wopila for that prayer there. And I guess just real briefly about the Liberation Day, as Tracy mentioned, I mentioned to her that I was like 9 years old in 1973. I was just really young at that time, and I've seen it. I lived in Pine Ridge at the time, and so being 9 years old, I wasn't really aware of everything, but learned more after as time went on. But it was a hard time then, as when communities struggle and there's division within. It's really hard on everybody there, and that's basically what's happening. And to boil it all down, a lot of people have different versions, opinions of what happened, but this is just mine, so I just want to say that up front. It's just my thoughts, and it doesn't reflect anybody else here or or the tribe either. So, but basically, what I've seen was that and heard, was that the tribe, our governance structure at the tribal government wasn't really being run right. It was, Oh, did I lose you?
Oh, no, you're there. You're
Yeah,
back. You got muted.
Okay. So basically at the time, the tribal government was the resources weren't being utilized well, and people were upset about that. But also there was the killing of some tribal members on a Nebraska border town that also, so it just there's a compilation, I guess, of a lot of different events, but what's brought, I believe it was a 71-day siege here at Wounded Knee. And so, it was, and every year they commemorate it. They have 4-directional walk. They walk from the 4 directions, and they'll meet here. And when they do the walk from each direction, they'll stop and they'll pray, for four times, and they'll come up here and they'll conclude the ceremony with prayers and also other talks, and they'll have a powwow tonight, I believe, in Wounded Knee, Manderson School there. But so I think it was just a lot of unrest, and and a lot of people will also bring that, and I believe it also, the treaties weren't being upheld, but I guess the treaties weren't being upheld, and the rights were being tribal members' rights were being abused by tribal members also, as well as non-members. So that kind of led up to that. So that's just kind of a brief, summary. And just quickly, I guess things that I remember was my parents brought me down to, they opened up the Wounded Knee because they had it closed off, but so community members came in, and I remember coming in to the old store there and running around as a child, and I noticed there was a hole in the floor. I guess previously the marshals or the opposition tried to burn the place down. So I don't know if they hit it with a cocktail or what kind of, but anyway, there's a hole in the floor there. And I remember, riding a school bus back through Wounded Knee back in those days, and I'd see a bunch of flares. At night, I imagine they shot a lot of flares in the air because there's a lot of little white parachutes hanging in the trees, and then you would see people walking. I mean, you would see people from different areas, marshals and like that around the community. And my mother used to work at the IHS hospital as a cook then. And that's where the government officials, the marshals would eat. So it was very interesting because she would tell stories too about things that the marshals would tell, or talk among themselves or tell people what they've seen or heard here. So it was really an interesting time. And unfortunately, there's a few people that, that were killed during that event. Buddy Lamont, I believe, was killed, and the Milo Goings was killed, and Frank Clearwater was killed. And so there was a lot of people. And I think about that today, what's changed today, are things still the same? And again, I think things got somewhat better, but I think in some ways they're still the same. And, as Tracy mentioned earlier, we have these discussions. I had it with her. I was really interested in data, because without that, we can't really make a good decision. Historically and culturally, I think we used, science and investigating and finding things out, that's how we made decisions, So if you could take a buffalo and make it food, clothing, and shelter and tools, that's pretty intelligent, and how to, prior to horses, how we were able to, take the animal down, which is pretty large animal. So there's a lot of intelligence, that we have. But I guess now with the Western way of doing things, it's kind of it's a challenge, both culturally also too, because as time goes on, we're losing a lot of our knowledge, and our language and our ceremonies. So it's a challenge, but I believe, through prayer that we can always, survive. And in closing, I just want to say, one thing quickly, that when you talk about the word water, in Lakota, the Lakota word for water is mani. So, I was told, and you break that word down, ma in the Lakota would be possession or mine, when you use it in a phrase. So ma would be mine, and ni would be like the breath. And sometimes you might know, those of you that are aware of the sweat lodge, it's called the inipi. So you go into that lodge, the inipi, and you get rejuvenated, and you put the rocks in and the water on the rocks, and the steam comes, so that's ni, like a breath. So, it's depending on which way you use it, but basically it's life. So mani, is like, to me, and it's like me, like, and that's life. So like, I want to live, which makes sense, without water, nothing lives. So I just want to share that with, the listeners and people there. And some of you may know that, I mean, the locals, but I'm very interested in how each culture perceives, or how they do what they do, especially when it comes to water. Very, very important, and I take it for granted. You turn on the spigot and there it is, but really the quality of water and the amount of water, and, who controls the water plays a big part, and starting to take has been a big part in our society, or, humanity's the role, so. So that's about all I got there. And if anybody has any questions, or if that's good, then I'm good too.
Thank you. Thank you, Ed, so much. Tracy, please. Yes.
I was just going to say thank you so much, Ed Wopila, for your words today.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. We are very grateful. So.
Oha.
Good. And so now we are transitioning to our speaker, I mean, if somebody has a question, I wouldn't want to interfere with questions. If there anybody who has a question or a comment. Otherwise, we can keep having this conversation after the talk by Dr. Kathrin Schilling. So it's my pleasure to introduce very briefly Kathrin Schilling. She's an assistant professor in the Department of Environmental Health Sciences at Columbia University. She's a geochemist by training who is transitioning her knowledge and understanding of metals to public health. So we are very fortunate also to count with her as a leader of the our trace metals lab here at Columbia University. And today she's going to be sharing some of the work she has been doing on gold mining in the Black Hills and the impacts on local communities. Thank you, Kathrin, so much.
Thank you, Anna, for the introduction. And thank you, Anna and Cloud, for the nice word. Thank you so much. So yeah, I'm presenting today my work I did together with the Black Hills Clean Water Alliance. We worked on, it was a very small project. It's a community science project. And we worked on what is the impact of gold mining in the Black Hills and the potential impact on the local community. So this is actually one on the picture. You see one of the biggest gold mines in the Black Hills. This is the Wharf mine. Okay. So how the project actually started. So it started with the American Geological Union. They have a program called Thriving Earth Exchange. And you can, as a scientist, sign up there and they connect you to a community and you work with the community on a environmental problem. It could be something related to flood, to droughts, or water quality. And I applied for the fellowship and they set me up with Black Hills Clean Water Alliance with Lilius is the founder of the Black Hills Clean Water Alliance. Can you see my cursor? That's Lilius. And also Carla, I saw she is the audience, Carla, on the photo. She also is part of the Black Hills Clean Water Alliance, and it's an amazing team. They fight mining in the Black Hills for a long, long time, not only gold mining, but also uranium mining, lithium mining, and they do an amazing work. And this project we worked on together in the gold mining we presented that as Miana Faye. She's from the Okolala Lakota tribe. She presented the work at the last American Geophysical Union meeting in Chicago, and that was very well received because it was a program, a session on community science, and a lot of people had questions, and she did an amazing job. So I just, oops, sorry. I see my slide is screwed up. Sorry. So actually what I wanted to show, I just worked on a slide just a minute before. Okay, what I wanted to show is basically, I wanted to say, let me just quickly, okay, what gold is in, so gold, we find it in the periodic table, it's next to mercury. And gold is very often used in, when we think about gold, it's in jewelries. And that's true because 80% of the gold produced or mined is actually for jewelries. Just a few percentage are used for coins and bars, a little bit in electronic industry, and a little bit in medicine. So the gold market is actually booming in the last 4 years. So the market price of gold increased over the last 4 years in 2018 to 2022 by over 70%. So currently the price of gold is about $2,000 per ounce. And the US has actually the largest reserve of gold. It has together, like Germany, Italy, and France have together as much as the US has on gold reserves. And if you think of gold, like I'm sure everybody has at least one gold jewelry at home. But for one gold ring, you actually produce 20 tons of mine waste. And that's, again, from, you see the photo on the left, you can see the Wharf mine in you can see the Wharf mine in the Black Hills, and it's huge. And if you imagine how much waste they produce for just a ton of gold, it's immense. And then you can see the other photo, that's from the Colorado River, where they had a spill from a gold mine. So it produces a lot of waste, a lot of toxic waste also. And it's fairly common that for gold mines that there are accidents and toxic waste is released either into rivers, or because the chemicals they use to treat the gold, to extract the gold from the ore, that this is spilled. And gold mines are responsible for more than 0.3% of the global carbon emission. And with the extraction of gold from the rocks, they use, what I said, very toxic chemicals, and one of them is mercury. And gold mining accounts for over 38% of the annual global mercury emission. And although all this gold mining is a very destructive industry, the World Bank actually funds gold mining because it also provides a lot of jobs for people in Africa, Asia, and South America. And they actually spent over $800 million since 2010 to support gold mines. So what I want to talk about is the gold mine in the Black Hills, the Wharf mine. So you can actually, when you get a chance and you go to the Black Hills, you can drive through the Wharf mine. It's huge and you feel like it's endless. There's a road going through and you can see how deep they dig for the gold. And it looks like the landscape of the moon. So there are no trees anymore in the Black Hills. If you have ever been there, it's so beautiful with all the trees and the creeks, and it's wonderful. But there is nothing. No trees, just plain rock, crushed rocks. And if you look at a satellite photo here, this is the gold mine from the satellite. It's huge, and you see all around this gold mine in the top photo. So all trees around it, and then below that's also from the mine when they have the huge trucks to take the crushed ore. So the gold mining in the Black Hills has a long history, and a very destructive history. So it started in the 1800s, and the longest operating gold mine was the Homestake mine. They closed it in 2002, but it was operating for 126 years. And currently the largest gold mine is the Wharf gold mine, and that's an open pit. So that means it's like they're extracting all the rock, and then they leach the gold out with a chemical called cyanide, and then collect the gold basically. And cyanide is a very toxic chemical when they extract the gold. And here is a table from a report on cyanide in society, where they showed how many accidents happen during the extraction of a general mining of metals. They don't use only cyanide in gold mining, also for other extraction of other metals. I just highlighted in red the ones for gold. And you see this only shows it for 5 years, from 1998 to 2003. And there were 5 large incidents where there were spills of the toxic chemical cyanide. And it was in different countries, different mines, different mining companies. So that's very concerning. And the way how they actually do that, how they extract the gold with cyanide, is what I said, they crush the ore, very fine powder, then they add the cyanide to it, then to leach out the gold absorbed in the cyanide, then they sieve it and extract the gold particle, and then they have huge ponds where they collect the cyanide and wait until the cyanide slowly decomposes, is no longer toxic, and then they can maybe recycle the water, but I'm not sure if that's always happening. So but what we can say is there's a large quantity of waste produced. Again, imagine one gold ring, 20 tons of waste, plus this is just the waste of all these crushed rocks, but also the waste of the chemicals used to extract this little bit of gold. So maybe we should rethink about the gold industry in general. And then I found this article on that mining companies are mostly destroying public lands of indigenous tribes. And it's becoming more and more, because now again, the mining is in boom, with like gold pricing up. For a lot of metals, prices are high right now. So they again start more, mining operation is increasing again, and especially it's increasing in the Black Hills. And I think Carla, what I said, she's on the call as well. They know that there will be, they want to start some lithium mining there, rare earth mining. So the Black Hills are under a lot of pressure from a lot of different mining operating companies. And then there is this paper by John Lewis. She reported that more than 600,000 native people live actually very close to hard rock mines. And on top of the list is actually are the gold mines. So more than 400,000 people, Native Americans, live closer than 10 kilometers, which is about 7 miles, to a gold mine. And if you look at the graph on the right, you see that it shows even much better compared to other mines like uranium mining, copper mining, or lead. So you see here the graph shows from 0 to 25 kilometers. Most people live in this area close to the gold mine. That's, for example, for uranium, it's more evenly distributed, the distance from where people's homes are to the mines. So that's when we think of how much of the toxic chemicals they use to extract the gold, also when they extract the gold, all this mine waste and from other toxic metals they're going to release, they're fairly, when people live fairly close, so their water will be much easier be impacted by the mining operation. And why it's concerning in the Black Hills, so they want to start a new gold mine operation project. It's called the Rockford project. This is, as you see it on the map on the right, it's west of Rapid City. Rapid City, if I remember it right, has about 80,000 people living there. So and the creeks from this area where they want to start a project drain towards the Rapid City and would affect also one large reservoir, which is the Pactola Reservoir. If there would be any spill, any leak coming from the mine, within 30 to 30 minutes, it could reach the Pactola Reservoir. Compared to that, if you look at the north here, that's where the currently operating Wharf mine is. It's in the north, so further away from the city. So that's why a lot of people are very concerned. If they start mining operations so close to the city, more people will be impacted and their water resources will be impacted, not only by the water quality, but also they need a lot of water for operating the mine. So they're worried about droughts and not the availability of fresh water. And that's very, the concern is valid because if you look at the photo from here, that's from the 1970s, where that was how they operated the mining in the 70s. So that's the Whitewood Creek. So all the mine waste would just be drained into the river. So if you people who live there and still picture that, and the Whitewood Creek was actually a Superfund site. When they closed the Homestake mine, they had to clean up the Whitewood Creek. They had a large arsenic contamination. So no wonder that people are concerned if it's even closer to a bigger city. And that's why I'm so proud of Lilias and Carla. They fight a lot against the gold mining, and they know about a large impact, and they go out and talk to people and tell them how bad it would be for their water. And I got this from the La Côte d'Or, where people stand on the street fight saying that there should be no gold mining, and also that from the website from the Black Hills Clean Water Alliance that they should protect the creeks and the surface water, and they should stop the gold mining. So, but how can we stop the mining before it even has started, and how we can prove that the mining would impact the water quality and it might contaminate water. Because if it hasn't been started, maybe the water is absolutely fine now. So we have no evidence. So the best way, what we thought to do is like, let's see how does the water, what's the water quality around the Wharf mine, where the operating is on for several years or decades, and compare the water quality there to the water quality of where they are planning to do the mining. And then when we see a large difference, we can say, okay, mining potentially affects the water quality. And that is a good argument that hopefully they won't start the mining. So we went for water sampling, Lilias, Miana, and me, twice, one time in October 2021 and then in July 2022. And we collected water samples from around the Wharf mine. Here, this is the Wharf mine on the map. And then here is Rapid City in the south east of the map. And the square, the yellow square, is the one where we sampled water in November 2021 for where they are planning to do the new gold mine. Collected water sample from the creeks there. That's the Rapid City watershed. And then what I said about here around the Wharf mine downstream of the mine. So we collected water samples, we filtered the samples, and we measured 30 elements in this water. So toxic metals, essential metals, and compared those two locations and wanted to see if the water quality is impacted by the Wharf mine. I just focused on 3 elements because they stick out from from all the 30 elements we analyzed. That's uranium, arsenic, and vanadium. So that's basically a bar graph. So, and the bar graph shows you when we sampled the water in the Wharf mine in July 2022. So there's all the data points from all the different creeks combined, basically, and compared it then to the Rapid City watershed. And what you can see is that the Wharf mine area, everything water collected around the Wharf mine has much higher uranium concentration than the Rapid City watershed. The same for arsenic and the same for vanadium. All of these 3 elements are toxic, are elements of, we know that arsenic is toxic in uranium. Vanadium is considered an emerging contaminant, something which the EPA is checking now for some regulations. So that's very interesting to see. Okay, it's much higher around the Wharf mine. So if you look at the different locations around the Wharf mine, for these elements, we can see here, we have the map from the map I showed before. We have in the north, the Wharf mine and the impacted from the watershed impacted by the Wharf mine. And then we have the Rapid City watershed. It's at the southeast of the map. And what we see, you see the circles, and the different circles show you different concentrations. So as larger the circle, as higher the concentration. And as you see, when you're very close to the mine, you see here the mine, the map, close to the mine, you have high concentration of arsenic, and that exceeds even the maximum contamination level of arsenic of 10 microgram per liter, defined by the EPA. So, and if you look at, you probably won't even be able to see it, but the Rapid City watershed also has arsenic, but there I go with my cursor, you can see here's a little red dot, and there is a little red dot, and this is less than 1 microgram per liter. So now let's go to the next element, uranium. Same story. So uranium has 3 times higher levels in the surface water around the Wharf mine compared to the Rapid City watershed. So again, when you look here, it's very high concentration of 20 micrograms per liter of uranium we found here. In the same creek, we found a very high arsenic. And if you look down here in the Rapid City, here is again, I show with my cursor, here's this little green dot here and this little green dot there. So basically nothing. And now going to vanadium, it's the same, slightly different distribution compared to the other 2 elements, but also way higher concentration of vanadium in the surface water, these creeks around the Wharf mine, compared to the Rapid City watershed, you see again, you can really pronounce the yellow dots here, and you can't basically see them in the Rapid City area. So actually that's, I wanted to make it short so that we have some time for questions. So when we sampled, this was our team. So actually it was Lilias, Miana, and we went to the field, and our hosts were Lynn and Carol. And I learned so much from Miana when we went to the field. When she gave the presentation at the AGU, she taught me this word, He Sapa, which is in Lakota language means protecting the heart of everything that is. And I love that. And I thought I wanted to add it here because she can't be here today, but just presenting her because we work together. And I would like to thank Black Hills Clean Water Alliance and Lilias and Carla, and I hope we will work together in future, and AGU, and of course the Super Fund, that we can continue this work. And what it basically shows that the mine has a huge impact on the water quality, and we have to say it's a community science project with nearly no funding, and we at least were able to show that there should be no mining close to Rapid City because it will impact the water quality in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kathrin. And let's open it up for questions and comments. And I see Lex Van Gien has raised his hand. So great, please. And people bring in your pictures if you would like. Lex, yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Kathrin, for this very interesting presentation. I think these kinds of projects are very important. They make whoever makes decisions locally aware that the community is sort of on its guard and wants to try to avoid being hurt. At the same time, what you've shown us is a correlation. And I think that's a big step away from causation. And I think in order for you to sort of make your cause as strong as possible, I think you need to present it somewhat differently. The existing mine that you studied is there for a reason. Presumably the geology could be different than other areas. And I wouldn't want your interpretation, not your data, but your interpretation to be criticized just because you're jumping from correlation to causation without a very clear argument, at least not one that was presented to us today.
So the gold, so all of them in the Black Hills, the gold comes from the Precambrian formation. So the formation should be the same in the gold mine where it is, and the gold mine they are planning to do. It should be basically the same formation. So we could assume it's basically the same chemical composition when they start the operation of the mine, that could have the same signal released of all the other metals to the water, basically, because it comes from the same formation, the gold. Otherwise, they wouldn't do the same operation in the same area. So there is a reason why they want to do, they started the exploration already in this area, and they actually want to plan it there because it's the same formation, same rock. And with the price being high, maybe it's slightly less gold than exactly at the area where they are right now, but it's profitable because of the high price currently to start a new mining.
But just to follow up very briefly, do you have evidence that the groundwater was different before the mining operation started? I don't think so, because it's so long ago, right?
That's correct. But so that's correct. And it's not the groundwater. We look at the surface water. We look at the creeks. We don't look at groundwater.
I wanted to ask that question because for those of us who are not geochemists or geologists, can you help us a little bit to understand better? So what's interesting here is normally we understand that groundwater can have these elements, but surface water is more rare, no? That you would have these levels. So that could be an argument to say that these surface water levels could come from are more likely to come from contamination. Is that an argument?
Yeah, that's an argument. And also what you see, you have the mine and you have the creeks. It's probably in the map difficult to show because it's a quite large area. If you go to the mine, it takes you about half an hour to drive around the mine minimum. And then there are several creeks draining from the mine. And as you see, with closer you are taking a sample from close to the mine, in the same creek downstream, it becomes less. So that's actually clear evidence. It has to come from there and not from somewhere else because it's downstream decreasing concentration. Because we sampled the creeks upstream and downstream.
So there is like a dilution as you move further.
Yeah, either dilution or whatever happens in the sediment. We have not sampled the sediment. Maybe there is some adsorption in the sediment, something, and it would be nice to sample the creek sediments and look at the concentration of metals there.
Nancy has a question about the size of the mine.
I have to look back
I
at
can
the,
answer that.
yes, Carla can answer.
So the Wharf mine is the only large scale mine operating in South Dakota right now in the northern, it's a Northern Hills Ranger District. So, and it's on fee lands or private lands, I guess. But it is 7.5 miles in circumference around that mine. And that mine has been operating for, it's the parent company is Core Mining, which is, they also operate a mine up in Alaska called the Kensington mine. And that mine had over 200 EPA violations for contaminants. Wharf mine, they do, since they process the gold and silver there and using cyanide, then they also have to report to the state of South Dakota if they have any spills. And they do have them. The state of South Dakota has an interactive map, Department of Agricultural and Natural Resources, it's called now. But they do have an interactive map where you can go on in the wharf area and you can click onto these little yellow triangles and it'll show you what has been spilled. And it has PDFs attached to it, the reports and stuff. So
Thank you.
I would like to go back to the comment from Lex and Kathrin. If you could collect data that could be even more powerful, like, you know, if you had more resources, because obviously you do this work with very, very limited resources.
Yeah.
Which types of measurements could you provide to kind of better track the origin of these elements? And actually, could this before, now you have data, if there is a new mine that could serve as a baseline. Of course, it would take maybe 10 or 20 years to have the post mining data, but what types of data do you think could be helpful?
I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, it's not that, I think Lex has a good point. And I think more sampling, maybe we just sample where it was accessible for us, I have to say. I'm going to say we can sample more sediments, and maybe we can look at strontium isotopes and look at the source, where it's coming from. That would be one potential.
Okay. More questions, comments from the audience?
I've got a question.
Yes, Richard, if you have any questions or comment related to the presentation about the mining, or if you want to share your personal experience. We know that many of you live in the Northern Plains, you have experience with mining and the impact of mining, the potential impact in communities. So feel free to share your comments or experience.
I was just saying, you know, when I was little, we used to go to Deadwood, the days of '76 at rodeo, and my grandfather used to take dancers up there to Deadwood for that rodeo, and I remember we used to camp alongside the creek there, and I remember when I was little, there were times during the day that the river would run white. The whole river and the whole creek would be white. And I was wondering what that was, you know, maybe it was it was probably the chemicals or something that was in there, you know, that made the creek run white, just pure white. And it really kind of amazed me then, you know. I wasn't sure what it was, but now that I look more into it, you know, it's the mining, you know, the mining that was being done, and they were dumping it into that creek. And I'm not sure, you know, I know that that creek goes down into the Cheyenne River, I think, Cheyenne River, and I think the Cheyenne River goes all the way into the Cheyenne River Indian Reservation.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a lawsuit, you know, by the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe against one of the mines up there, you know, about the chemicals that were in the water. And I'm not sure what the chemicals were, but I just wanted to share that much this afternoon. Thank you.
You're on mute, Anna.
Yeah, please, Carla, go ahead. Thank you, Richard.
So I was looking back through the mining history of South Dakota, which it's buried on their website now. So it's a good thing I copied and pasted it a couple years ago. But so Whitewood Creek was a Superfund site, 18 miles of Whitewood Creek from Deadwood, and that came out of the homestake. So 18 miles of Whitewood Creek had to be monitored at different locations, and that lasted for about 20 years. But yeah, Richard, you're right that Cheyenne River did file a lawsuit, and they had to pay Cheyenne River Sioux tribe because of the contamination that came out off of Whitewood Creek that ran into, I believe, the Bear Butte watershed and then onto the Cheyenne. So there's a North Fork Cheyenne and a South Fork Cheyenne. And so yes, since it went by our reservation, then yeah, they had to pay. So it's no longer a Superfund site, but there's the Gilt Edge Superfund site up in the Lead Deadwood area, which these mining companies are coming in fast and furious. So we've got Anika Eagle, we've got Barrick Gold. I mean, these are some heavy hitter mining companies that are coming in. Right now there's F3 Gold. Kathrin talked about Mineral Mountain. They were kind of a small operation that came in to do exploration on fee lands. And one thing that what these companies are doing, instead of if they want to get water out of the aquifer or drill a well, like a water well to use for that mining operation, they have to get a state water permit. The way they're getting around this, it's either a well, excuse me, a well, or taking it directly out the creek. Any of the creeks or the tributaries, waterways, they have to get a state water permit. So what they're doing is they're going to the municipalities and buying water, purchasing water from these municipalities. That's one way they're getting around it. Mineral Mountain went to Keystone, South Dakota, and I went to the city council because I knew they were going, or they were requesting to purchase water out of Keystone, which is a highly tourism location. But Keystone told them flat out, no, we're not selling you water. So Mineral Mountain went up to Lead, purchased water there, and as they're driving their big truck, I mean, it's one of these huge, you know, trucks that going up to their project up by Rochford or Peshla area, closer to Rochford, their truck wrecked and it hit a guardrail. And when that truck hit the guardrail, it slid to the side, and they had to release that big barrel that rolled down into Rapid Creek, and they had to release that water into Rapid Creek. And if that was mining waste, that would have been catastrophe. So it was potable water. So, you know, they just released it into the creek. That truck also had Nevada plates. So when these companies come in and say, we're going to hire local, they aren't. So, But yeah, there's a lot of mining companies coming in fast and furious, and we're just trying to keep up. So I really thank Kathrin and Miana and Lilias for going down into the creeks and getting water samples, sliding down into the snow, I guess.
Yeah, Lex, you can go ahead, and then Caitlin has a question. So yes, but Lex, you can go ahead.
So, Carla, building on what you said, hiring local, I was wondering, I've never been to South Dakota. Are there any conditions under which maybe some of these mines could be operating that would be acceptable and maybe even beneficial to the local community, or do you see no room for that whatsoever? Obviously, there could be economic benefits, but that's not the only factor. And typically, they're skewed towards the mining companies. I'm just wondering whether there is some sort of compromise that's even conceivable.
Personally, I say no, because South Dakota is a tourism state. They're a tourism, they're agriculture. We depend on the beauty of the Black Hills and the natural wonder of the Black Hills. I mean, we call Black Hills is, Hesapa, the heart of everything that is. Hesapa means that it's has to cover something, and then Sapa is black, but we also call it the heart of everything that is, because this was where our creation story started. This is where it's in our DNA that this is where our creation story started. This is where we became human beings. And this is where the water is our main entity to all these stories and our creation and our medicines and everything that we have here. This land, the Black Hills, are very sacred to us. But not only that, South Dakota has to look at this as well, because I mean, they get billions of dollars from tourism. Mining companies only contribute maybe 1% of the economy to South Dakota. So if you start looking at these mining companies coming in and destroying a piece of this beautiful land that we have here, the landscape is going to change tremendously. Not only that is the water. All this water in the Black Hills, it all goes to the east. And when it flows to the east, it goes to the Missouri River. So we have to really take a hard look at what we're doing as human beings, to say, enough is enough. We've seen enough contamination throughout the United States and all over the world with these companies coming in, and they come in, they contaminate, they walk away. We've had a lot of abandoned mines. So yeah, I say no. I vote no.
This was very inspiring and very, very important. Caitlin, you have a question about the vanadium and the potential other source of vanadium. I don't know if Kathrin had some comments, or can we think of any other source of vanadium, or is most likely the mine the source?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if there's like some exhaust or dust particles happening, or what the geography is like.
No, unless it's the mine where you have basically where soil. Other than that, it's all mountain, and mountain is dry, so it's spread covered. I don't think there's not much industry there. It's just there. Someone looks out the side window. That's how it looks like when you see who it is. That's how it looks like. So I don't think there's a lot of PM 2.5.
No, I was just curious. Is vanadium like a common byproduct from gold and gold mining? I just don't know. Yeah.
No, it's from the chemistry. It's kind of similar, like where uranium is placed, and chemically similar. So when you find uranium, you often find vanadium, and then comes arsenic. So they're kind of similar. So that's why, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And thank you, Margaret, for showing the beautiful view and the blue sky. It's so gorgeous there. It's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy, Kyle, I wanted to give you an opportunity to say hello, yes, and introduce yourselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll lower my hand here. I want to echo what Carla was saying about the job opportunities that You know, is there a trade-off? And in my opinion, there is not. I was born in Crawford, Nebraska. I was raised in the area. I'm back home at the headwaters of the White River. And just downstream, Cameco mined uranium. And they exhausted their initial 8,000 well license area. And then their expansion was exhausted. I mean, their expansion ability was interrupted. That ore body remains, and those licenses and that industry remains watching as predators to rural communities who are not educated about headwater protection or downstream protection. They're predators, and we are looking now as tourism, hoping to get something going because this area is depopulated and devastated. And Lakota are the first to go because these are border towns. And what we deal with, the violence and the racism, if we interrupt their jobs in mining, we get it. So we go first, and then the older population and the younger population who leave the area or are raised off the ranch, they're gone. And what's left is the older population. So then those mines wait. They wait to come in and rescue, pretending like they're going to rescue this contaminated community. I could go on, but I'm going to stop there.
Thank you, Nancy, so much. And Margaret, you raised your hand. We have 2 minutes left. We would love to hear from you. But we cannot hear you. I think you need to unmute. Yeah. Oh, I am not sure. And Whitney, can you unmute her maybe?
I can only ask her to unmute. I can't like forcefully unmute her.
I think it's the challenge of when we get the nurse.
Probably.
Okay, so we are sorry, Margaret, because we cannot hear you. But maybe you can put it in the chat. Do you mind? Maybe you can write it down in the chat. And so I think we have 1 minute left. I wanted to say thank you so much. Thank you to Ed Ironcloud, to Tracy Sacker, to Kathrin Schilling, to Carla, to Nancy, to Margaret, to Lex, and to everybody who asked questions and contributed. I can see Teresita has her hand raised, so I want to give her the opportunity to speak in the last minute.
I just wanted, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Teresita Kiana, and I come from the Redwater Pond Road Community Association. And I also work with UNM for the Native American Budget and Policy Institute. And I come from a community impacted by uranium mining, and I put my name, my email, and just kind of just my location of where I come from, so you guys can email me about any questions you might have about that. But I've experienced it as well, and just to let people know that it's not just, it seems like it's a lot of indigenous communities, people of color are having to deal with these kind of disparities when it comes to mining industries when they came before EPA's rule. So it's hard to navigate, but it's something that we're learning how to do now. So just wanted to introduce myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for your contributions, for the inspirations. This was a wonderful event. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.